Close your eyes for a second. Picture your father, not a version of him, the real version, the one who drove you to practice, signed your school forms, told you what hard work looked like, the man you measured yourself against. Tyler Whitmore sat in the back of a Marriott banquet hall in Columbus, Ohio, October 18th, 2023, his father's retirement party. 35 years at Meridian Engineering Group. Colleagues stood up one after another. Toasts, stories, laughter. And Tyler sat there proud. Then a man named Paul Mercer walked up to the microphone. Red-faced from 2 glasses of wine, big smile, zero filter, and Paul said 7 words. Gerald never actually needed that Ohio State diploma anyway. The crowd laughed. Tyler didn't, because Tyler knew exactly which diploma Paul was talking about. It was framed in his parents' living room. 30 years, Ohio State University, Bachelor of Science in Civil Engineering. 1988. Tyler had grown up under that diploma, and Paul Mercer had just called it irrelevant, which could only mean one thing. Paul Mercer knew something Tyler didn't. Gerald Whitmore was the kind of father other kids were jealous of. He coached Tyler's Little League team 3 seasons in a row. He drove 4 hours to every college visit, sat in every single meeting. He had a saying he repeated so often Tyler could recite it before age 10. "Nobody gives you anything in this life, son. You earn it, every single inch." Gerald had framed his Ohio State diploma himself. Tyler remembered watching him do it. 12 years old, sitting on the garage floor. His father had held it up to the light before putting it in the frame, like it was sacred. Gerald spent 35 years at Meridian Engineering Group. Started as a junior project coordinator, became a senior structural engineer, eventually rose to director of infrastructure development. A team of 40 people, major bridge contracts, state highway projects, peer-reviewed, praised, promoted, every year for 35 years. That was the man Tyler thought he knew. That was the man he'd been trying to become. Paul Mercer's 7 words had just cracked the foundation. Tyler didn't confront Paul at the party. He didn't confront anyone. He sat through the rest of the speeches, ate the dinner, hugged his father good night, and then he went home and couldn't sleep. By 3 in the morning, Tyler had pulled up the Ohio State University alumni directory, typed in his father's name, full name, Gerald Raymond Whitmore, graduation year, 1988, civil engineering. No record found. He tried the registrar's public records portal. Same result. He searched 3 different alumni networks. He even emailed the Ohio State Engineering Department at 3:47 in the morning, a message he was not proud of, asking for alumni verification. By 4 a.m., Tyler's hands were shaking, not because he'd found proof his father had lied, but because he couldn't find any proof that he hadn't. He spent the following week building a case the way he imagined a detective would. He called Ohio State's alumni verification line, on hold for 40 minutes. The answer, when it came, was polite and definitive. Ohio State Representative. "I'm sorry, sir. We have no record of a Gerald Raymond Whitmore graduating from this university." Tyler sat in his car in a parking garage for 20 minutes before he could drive. Here is what Tyler eventually put together. In 1987, Gerald Whitmore had been a junior year student at Ohio State. Not an engineering student, a business administration student. He had failed 2 core courses in his sophomore year, lost his scholarship, dropped out before his junior year was complete. He was 21 years old, with no degree, no money, and a job market that required credentials he didn't have. So Gerald did something that, in 1988, was significantly easier than it is today. He had a diploma printed. Same typeface, same seal, authentic looking enough. Ohio State, Bachelor of Science in Civil Engineering. Gerald Raymond Whitmore, 1988. And then he walked into Meridian Engineering Group's hiring office, a small firm in Columbus that didn't yet have a formal background check process, handed them the diploma, and got the job. What is undeniably true about Gerald Whitmore? He was gifted. Genuinely. He read structural engineering textbooks in the evenings, taught himself CAD software before it was standard. He passed every internal certification Meridian required. He was talented enough to do the job, but the credential that got him through the door had never existed. Tyler did not go to his father first. He went to Meridian Engineering Group. Not to report him, he just needed to understand what he was dealing with. He sent a formal inquiry email to the Human Resources Department, identifying himself as the son of a recently retired employee, asking carefully about the company's historical credentialing verification process. He received a call the next morning from Dr. Sandra Okafor, Director of Human Resources. Her voice was controlled in a way that told Tyler everything before she said a word. "Mr. Whitmore, I think it would be better if we had this conversation in person." They met in a conference room at Meridian's Columbus office. Sandra Okafor placed a thin manila folder on the table. She did not open it immediately. She said, "Your father's credential discrepancy was identified in 2009 during a routine company-wide audit triggered by new federal contracting requirements." Tyler stared at her. 2009, 14 years ago. Gerald had worked at Meridian for another 14 years after they found out. The decision at senior leadership level was to retain him. He was, by every performance metric, the most consistently effective structural engineer on our roster. We required him to complete a formal self-directed credentialing program through an accredited institution, which he did in 2011. He holds an accredited professional certification as of that year. Tyler's voice, when it came out, was very quiet. Tyler said, "And no one thought to tell his family?" Sandra folded her hands on the table. "That was not our determination to make." Tyler drove home from Meridian in silence. He sat in his parents' driveway for 11 minutes before going inside. His mother was in the kitchen. She looked up when he walked in, and Gerald Whitmore immediately knew. Not from his expression, from the fact that she had been waiting for this moment for 10 years. Tyler said, "Mom, did you know?" Carol set down the dish she was holding, very carefully, and then she sat down at the kitchen table, and she said, "Your father told me in 2013, when the audit came up the first time, and I asked him why he seemed so frightened. He told me everything." Tyler didn't speak. Carol continued, "I was furious. I'm not going to tell you I wasn't. I wanted to leave. For about 3 weeks I thought I was going to leave, but he cried, 'Tyler, your father cried.' And he said it started as a desperate mistake and became a trap he couldn't find a way out of. And by then you and your sister were in college, and I thought, what does exposing this do to you, to your sister, to the life we built?" Tyler asked the question he already knew the answer to. "So you chose the secret?" Carol looked at her son and said, "I chose my family. I'm not sure those are the same thing. I'm still not sure." Here is the detail that hit Tyler the hardest. Not the diploma, not even his mother's decade of silence. This. For 12 years, Gerald Whitmore ran Meridian's internal mentorship program for junior engineers, young graduates, 22, 23 years old. who had worked hard for their actual degrees and were just starting their careers. Gerald was their mentor. He reviewed their credentials, evaluated their qualifications, signed off on their professional development plans. He told them what Tyler had heard 100 times growing up. Your credentials are the foundation. Everything you build professionally rests on them. Protect them, honor them. A man with a forged degree, teaching young engineers the importance of earned credentials. Tyler found this out from a former mentee, a woman named Alicia Huang, now a licensed structural engineer, who had reached out after seeing Gerald's retirement announcement online. She had written in her message, "Your dad changed my career. He always said the credential was the non-negotiable part, that it meant something. I think about that advice all the time." Tyler read that message 3 times, and then he closed his laptop and sat very still. Tyler met his father for breakfast 3 weeks after the retirement party, a diner on the east side of Columbus, their usual place. Gerald ordered black coffee and scrambled eggs, same as always. Tyler placed his phone on the table. Screen up, the Ohio State Alumni Verification page. No record found. He didn't say anything. He just waited. Gerald looked at the screen for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was steady. That was the part Tyler hadn't expected. He'd expected denial. He'd expected anger. Instead, his father looked him in the eye and said, "I know. I've known this conversation was coming for 35 years. Gerald did not make excuses. He told Tyler everything, the dropout, the desperation, the forged diploma, the day in 2009 when Meridian found out and gave him a choice he still didn't fully understand why they made. He said, "Not a single day went by that I didn't think about it. You think living with something like that is comfortable? I was terrified every single day. I was terrified of you finding out most of all." Tyler sat with that for a moment and said, "Did you actually know how to do the job, Dad?" Gerald answered without hesitating. "Yes, I taught myself. I worked harder than anyone in that building because I had to. Because I was always afraid I'd be caught being less than I claimed." As of today, Gerald Whitmore faces no criminal charges. The statute of limitations on credential fraud in Ohio covered events from 1988. Meridian Engineering's internal decision to retain him, with documentation, largely insulated both parties. His professional certification from 2011 is real, and it is valid. The bridges he designed are still standing. The projects he led passed every inspection. Nobody got hurt, not physically. But Tyler will tell you that the thing he lost at that retirement party is not easily replaced. It wasn't the diploma. It wasn't even the career. It was the version of his father that had been his benchmark. The man who said, "You earn every inch of it." Tyler told a friend, "The hardest part isn't hating him. The hardest part is that I can't. Because I know the whole story now and he's still my dad, and it's so much more complicated than I wanted it to be." Carol and Gerald are still together. Tyler sees them on Sundays. Nobody mentions the diploma framed in the living room, so it's still hanging there. This is Smoke and Betrayal. Episode 10. If this story made you feel something, complicated, angry, sad, or just understood, subscribe, because there are more. I'll see you in the next one.